A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Honest J Nowak, Super Foam Flying, and today we're going to continue on out with the Super Loadout Pack, a late 2021 set which included 3 blasters, the Technician, the Quadfire, and the Ace. And now here comes the middleman of that series. This is the Quadfire QS4, and I feel like that by this point, Nerf has probably reskinned the Quadrot way too many times. As a matter of fact, I have it right up here on the wall. You can see this green blaster is the original, the one that pretty much started this whole little trend right here, the Quadrot QS4. And over here, this is the Otter QS4. A bit of a slight upgrade over the Fang QS4, which was an Alpha Strike reskin of the Quadrot. But aside from having a better grip and a better sort of profile in a way, not to mention a permanent scope which you cannot detach, I would in fact consider it to be the best of the Alpha Strike series. Or maybe better yet, my words would probably just be least worst, if you will. I really do feel like that the Otter really has a lot of trump cards that go up against all other incantations of the Alpha Strike series so far. But who even knows? If the Alpha Strike series were to get better, then there's really no telling what could ever happen. But being that the Super Series, the so-called Elite 2.0, is pretty much what goes little ways behind it, I can never really imagine what that series would be like as well, because the Alpha Strike series and this series, they've both shown pretty much what Nerf truly is capable of. They'd rather have a lot of things over performance. But yet, I really do have to admit though, that being that this is a reskin of the Quadrot, Fang, Otter, and pretty much every other blaster that's been a reskin of the Quadrot up here, the Quadfire QS4 actually is pretty good. And here's why. Yeah, first of all, it hits pretty hard. It's got a pretty tough spring. Not necessarily that heavy, but you know, it pretty much is what it is. And being that it has 4 barrels stacked on top of each other, the typical Quadrot design, I can't really be sure if that's supposed to be a patented design of any sorts that Nerf is continuously ripping themselves off on. But the thing is, you could load 4 darts onto it, you can pull back the priming rod. The priming rod is in fact pretty smooth for a blaster that's this cheap, if you will. And not to mention, it also has a tack rail on the bottom. A very short one, so you might be very limited with options based on what you could put down here. And I feel like that at least they didn't put one down here, because it's probably one of the weirdest things you could ever do with a Nerf blaster any time of day. I've talked about it a lot, and that it probably is one of the strangest choices that Nerf could ever put on their blasters, especially ones with handguards like this. And so I'm more than glad that they took this a bit seriously and just only allowed the handguard to be a handguard and not necessarily as a way to put a tack rail on the bottom. But yet over here, you probably still don't get a whole lot of options. The top, of course, would have a tack rail if it weren't for these iron sights that you can see right here. You got this part back here and this large one up in the front, which just technically means that it's just a typical fixation on iron sights. If you're able to get a good view of it, then well, that's pretty much just what you get here. Otherwise though, I really do have to admit that while the loadout pack sure does have some pretty nice kicks to it, ones that I never saw coming in December of 2021 when I bought this pack at the time, I've talked a bit about the Technician, and I really do have to admit it is an amazing blaster for 2021 in all means necessary. So looking back on how terrible the year is, it really is kind of surprising that I am starting to see some things that really are going to allow me to at least reminisce about the year in a much more positive way, pretty much. But let's not forget though that soon I will have to talk about the Ace SD1 right here. This blaster is pretty much the Jolt of this line, and I have been wanting to talk about it for a while, so do be sure to make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.